The first one is the tone that we use. In this particular study, they used syllabi to study the tone. But it wasn't a syllabus study. It was really using the syllabus as a tool to reveal what kind of tone do we take when we talk to the students. And so they took a generic syllabus and revised it they made two versions of the same syllabus. They revised the policies so that the meat of the policy would be the same. In this case, no late homeworks. And if you're late, we take 20% off right off the bat, and then we start grading from there. And so it was revised in a punishing way, where you can imagine it's all bold-faced and all caps, exclamation marks, no late homework ever for no reason, and if you're late, I will take off 20%. And on the other side, we have a rewarding syllabus where the wording is a little more encouraging. It says, please don't be late, because if you're late, I will only be able to give you 80% of the total points. So it's the same policy. The substance of the syllabus hasn't changed. But when they gave, and so they went down the line, policy by policy, and gave them the same treatment. So they had one syllabus that was very, very punishing, and the other one that was very, very encouraging. When they gave both syllabi to the students, this is what they found. They found significant differences in terms of which instructor was perceived to be more approachable. They found differences in what course the student wanted to take or not take. They said that they were not comfortable taking the course from the more punishing instructor, the scolding one. They were not comfortable going to the instructor to ask for help if they needed help. And in particular, they found out that first-year students were more impacted than everybody else. And those are the students you really want in your office when they need help, before you lose them. So the tone that we use can have a significant impact. And the good news is that we control the tone, whether we talk to students in ways that are encouraging or punishing. Another issue that the researchers looked at is that of stereotypes. What is the impact of stereotypes in the classroom? What do they do? So here's a stereotype. Here's a situation. Let's imagine this situation. A professor walks into a classroom and gives, to hand out the final in a math classroom, and says something along these lines. Good luck, everybody, especially you women, because we know that women are not good at math, but good luck. And what would happen? Here's what happens. Similar to what Chris experienced, now students in this situation experience a threat. The threat is that they are being stereotyped by somebody who espouses beliefs that might explain their performance. If they don't do well on the final, they will know that the professor thinks that they didn't do well because they're women and just inherently inferior. The task needs to be challenging. It doesn't work if you say, oh, you're a woman, you can't do math, what's 2 + 2, obviously. And the outcome needs to be important. Here I am, I care about math, I'm a math major, I want to be a mathematician, and here's somebody who holds power over me telling me that's just impossible by virtue of who I am. So these are the best students in that group that we're interested in retaining, especially when we talk about issues of leaky pipelines in STEM. It does not matter whether the person herself, the woman herself, believes the stereotype that they're less because they're women. What we find consistently is something along these lines. And this one was made for Black students and white students, not male and female, but it's the same outcome. Students belonging to the stereotyped group in the room where the stereotype is activated do worse than the students in not subject to stereotype, but they do also worse than women in a different room when no mention of the stereotype happened. And this is after controlling, in this particular study, they controlled for SAT scores. So it's after controlling for individual abilities. You still see big differences. And this is being replicated for gender and race and different races, like Black and Latino, old people and the stereotype of being forgetful, low socioeconomic status, any group you can think of has had a stereotype threat experiment done on them. And what we end up seeing in this is the same interior monologue that Chris experienced. So it's not about self-esteem. They measured self-esteem of all the participants in stereotyped groups or control groups in the one room where the stereotype was activated, in the other room, before and after the assessment. No changes. There were no significant differences in self-esteem. But it went more like this. Oh my God, I can't believe he said that. He's going to be grading my exam and he thinks that I'm going to do worse. Oh, I'll show him. Oh, I'll double check everything. And so there's all these mental processes that are going on that interfere with doing well on the exam. You're double and triple checking your answers, and then what they see is that students don't get to the later answers, for instance. It's just a lot of interference. So the good news out of that is do not activate stereotypes. That's really all it takes to get rid of that in any way. Even when we're careful to not activate stereotypes, we might still fall into what some researchers call microinequities. So this is an interesting issue that has been reported in the literature by observational studies where researchers would sit in the room and just take a tally about who gets more eye contact, men or women, who gets called on more to answer questions, whose answers get praised when they're correct, who gets asked more follow-up questions, who has their names used when the students are being addressed, who is given credit for saying something good. And overwhelmingly, people have found out that it's male students who get this credit. And so it's, and what they report is that when they conference back with the instructors in their courses, the instructors were horrified. These are well-meaning instructors, both male and female, who found themselves doing things that they would never advocate doing and that they thought they were absolutely not doing. Of course I give equitable time to everybody. Of course I call on everybody. Of course I use their names when I remember them. And yet there is this little tendency of not doing that and not being aware that we are not doing that. So this calls actually for vigilance on our side. And this already gets us into the last category of personal relationships with the students. These are little ways in which we treat students in the classroom when they try to participate in discussions. But in general, we interact with students in possibly significant ways. So significant, in fact, that in studies designed to find out why certain students, for instance, women and minorities, leave the sciences, what they found out that one of the major factors was that of faculty unavailability. Students who think that faculty don't care about them. They don't count for much. They're not going to be missed if they switch majors. Similarly and conversely, students reporting that they were at a critical juncture where they were thinking about switching or leaving or dropping out of college, and it was one critical interaction with a particular faculty member who took a pivotal role and sort of took them under their wing and mentored them, and that made a big difference in staying in college, staying in the major, succeeding in a particular course or a particularly hard course. And this has been confirmed in a couple different studies, and actually that I'm mentioning here, but actually even more other studies. On the plus side, so if the formalistic exchanges and if the perception of unavailability drives people away, other studies have also found that faculty who have a particular faculty-student orientation, which encompasses portraying that they're interested in the students' academic problems, that they're approachable outside of class, that they're treating students as individuals and not as numbers, and especially when it comes to concerns of certain minority groups. When faculty do that, that impacts the student's own self-reported level of critical thinking, analysis, problem solving, retention in the course and in college, and even the percentage of students who actually moves on to go to graduate school. So again, these are all things that we are largely in control of, that we should check if we're perceived as we intend to be perceived, because there might be a gap there, but we can act in ways that make sure that the students think that we are interested in their academic problems.